No, he is obviously not a leader. It's as plain as the nose on the end of your face. He is not a leader. His attitude when they went 3-0 down at Liverpool was appalling. That is another example of modern management. The tail wags the dog in football today. And there's only one club in the country right now where that doesn't happen. That's Man City, where the manager's all power.
I'm Brandon. This is Beyond Football. Game goes deeper than the pitch. And today it goes very deep indeed. Because he is the most selfish, were the actual words. Not from a fan on Twitter, not from a rival manager trying to wind someone up. Those words came from Graeme Souness, a man who won 3 European Cups, a man who was the heartbeat of one of the greatest club sides this country has ever produced. And he aimed them directly at Liverpool's own record goalscorer. At 72 years old, Souness is still doing this, still picking fights, still refusing to forgive. So today I want to lay it all out, because this is not just about opinions, this is a pattern. And when you see all 5 names together, it starts to look less like punditry and more like a personal court case, where Souness is the judge, the jury, and the one holding the grudge. Why does he keep doing this? And why do these 5 players, specifically, make him dig his heels in deeper than anyone else? Let us get into it. Before we do though, a quick one. If you are enjoying this kind of story, the deep dives that go beyond just the scorelines and the headlines, tap the hype feature on this video and give it some hype. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and it costs you nothing. I personally love making these videos, and I have spent a serious amount of time going through the research on this one, so if it is hitting right, the hype button is right there. Right, now let us talk about Graeme Souness and why he cannot let go. Before we get into the 5 players, let me be clear. Graeme Souness was genuinely brilliant. 5 English League titles, 3 European Cups, 54 caps for Scotland, the enforcer of a Liverpool side that dominated Europe, a player who combined technical quality with a physical presence that scared people. The man earned every bit of his reputation. But somewhere between those trophies and the television studio, something calcified inside him. One rigid belief took hold. The only way to earn respect in football is to do it exactly the way he did it. Trophies, grit, no complaints, just medals on the table or shut your mouth. And that belief is what has put 5 players in his personal firing line. In every single case, Souness did not just critique the football, he went after the character. And at 72, he has not softened a single inch. Starting with the most recent and working our way back, here are the unforgiven 5. Number 5. Mohamed Salah. This is the one that genuinely shocked people. Because Souness is a Liverpool man, he bled for that club, and Salah is arguably the greatest individual player to wear that shirt in the modern era. The goals he has scored, the records he has broken, the moments he has delivered at Anfield. For Souness to go after him felt like a betrayal of the entire Anfield fraternity. But go after him he did. In May of 2024, after a very public touchline disagreement between Salah and Jurgen Klopp, Souness appeared on a podcast and called Salah the most selfish player he had ever witnessed. Not one of the most selfish, not quite selfish, the most selfish ever. That is a strong statement from a man who has watched football for 50 years. His argument was that Salah's obsession with scoring, his desire to get the goal, even when it sometimes came at the expense of teammates like Sadio Mane, was a flaw that exposed itself when the pressure was highest. He said Salah disappears when he faces physical defenders, specifically naming Lisandro Martinez as the kind of player who would unsettle him, and that Salah simply does not like that side of the game. And then he went further. He actually urged Liverpool to cash in on him, to sell him, to take the money and move on. Think about what that actually means. Souness wanted Liverpool to sell a player who had scored over 200 goals for the club, won them a Champions League and a Premier League title, and become one of the most recognised footballers on the planet. Gone, because he lacked aggression. That is the Souness doctrine in its purest form. Goals do not matter if you are not mean enough. He is not analysing Salah the footballer, he is prosecuting Salah the person. And this is not new, he has been doing it for years. Number 4. Jack Grealish. Grealish is a different kind of entry on this list, because Souness does not quite say he hates Grealish. He says Grealish is good, just not great. And he says it constantly, over and over. Good, not great. £100 million, not great. Bought by Manchester City, started for England, still not great. The specific criticism Souness hammers home is the touches. Too many touches. He takes it down the line with his fullback, checks inside, plays it square, and there is no threat, no end product. He compared Grealish unfavourably to Jeremy Doku, saying any fullback in the league would rather face Grealish than Doku, because at least with Grealish you know what is coming. Predictable. He has called him predictable more times than I can count. But the moment that really tells you everything about how Souness thinks came when Grealish admitted he found the constant criticism confusing and a little difficult to deal with. He was honest about it. He said it does affect you, having someone on television picking at you week after week, and Souness's response was astonishing in its dismissiveness. He told Grealish not to be so precious. He said that if he had received that kind of feedback in his playing days, he would have brushed it off like dandruff. Dandruff. That is the word he used. He reduced the very real psychological pressure of being a £100 million signing under a 24-hour media spotlight to something you flick off your shoulder without a second thought. And the thing is, Pep Guardiola, the greatest manager in the world right now, values Grealish precisely for his calmness in possession, his ability to hold the ball, to keep his team breathing in tight situations. But to Souness, that calm is weakness. That possession style is not the Liverpool way, the pass and move way, and therefore it is wrong. His way is the only proper way. Full stop. Anyone who plays differently is not quite good enough. Number 3. Craig Bellamy. Now we are getting into the territory where Souness's grudges stop being media spats and start getting genuinely wild. Because this one did not happen on television. It happened in a dressing room, in a gym, and eventually it ended with a player being driven out of a football club. The Bellamy and Souness feud at Newcastle is still one of the most jaw-dropping stories in recent football history. And even now, years later, it reveals something really dark about what Souness becomes when someone directly challenges his authority. The flashpoint, the thing that started it all properly, was an alleged incident in January 2005, where Bellamy supposedly told his Newcastle teammates that he was going to fake an injury to avoid playing on the right wing against Arsenal. Souness, backed by chairman Freddie Shepherd, accused Bellamy of cheating. Not just being difficult, not just being a bit awkward, cheating. The club and the manager stood together and said this player was going to cheat on his teammates. And Souness's response was immediate and total. He said Craig Bellamy could never play for him again. Not right now, not this season, never. But to understand how we even got there, you need to go back to October of 2004. In a game against Charlton, Bellamy was substituted and mouthed obscenities directly at Souness as he came off. On the pitch, in front of everyone. Souness saw the footage on television afterwards and was livid. Absolutely livid. So they had a meeting. And in that meeting, Souness apparently threatened to knock Bellamy out. In a gym. It took Alan Shearer to physically pull Souness away. Think about that for a second. A football manager threatening to physically attack one of his own players. Alan Shearer having to step in. This is not the 1980s anymore. This is 2004. But Souness was operating as if the old rules still applied, as if a gaffer could grab a player by the throat and that would settle the matter. It did not settle the matter. Bellamy went to Sky Sports in January 2005 and called Souness a liar on national television. Shepherd called Bellamy a cheater. Bellamy was fined £80,000 and shipped out on loan to Celtic. His Newcastle career was effectively finished. And this is the clearest example of what Souness does when someone refuses to accept his authority. He does not cool down. He does not reflect. He escalates until the other person is gone. Bellamy's decision to go public and call his manager a liar on television was actually a signal of something much bigger happening in football. The end of the era where the gaffer's word was law and the beginning of the era of player autonomy. And Souness has never truly forgiven that shift. Number 2. Tyrone Mings. The feud with Tyrone Mings is a slightly different beast, and in some ways it is the most telling entry on this list. And look, if you watched my video on Paul McGrath, at 65, Paul McGrath names 6 players he will never forgive, you will already recognise this kind of thing. Old school footballers who built their careers on hard graft and physical courage sometimes struggle to stomach players who use their voice rather than their boots. McGrath had his list, Souness has his, and the Mings situation is where that pattern shows itself most clearly on this one. Because Mings did not do anything to Souness personally. He did not fake an injury, he did not call him out on television, he did not dismiss his career the way Pogba did. What Mings did was speak. He had opinions. He talked about the way footballers are treated as commodities, the way their well-being is sometimes overlooked. He said things that plenty of players think but rarely say out loud, and Souness decided that Mings had not earned the right to say them. The feud intensified in August 2022 when Steven Gerrard stripped Mings of the Aston Villa captaincy. Souness wrote a column in the Daily Mail supporting the decision, but the roots go back to 2020 when Mings was on a Zoom call discussing the perception of footballers, and Souness took exception to what he heard. His complaint was essentially this: a young man who had not achieved anything in the game had a hell of a lot to say, and to Souness that was not acceptable. The right to speak, the right to have an opinion that people take seriously. That is something you earn with trophies, not something you are simply entitled to as a professional athlete and a human being. When Mings hit back and called Souness's column weird and pointless, Souness did not back down. He invited Mings to a live debate on TalkSport, saying, "Bring it on, son." He also questioned Mings's on-pitch output, pointing to his struggles in individual duels against strikers like Romelu Lukaku as proof that the man was talking a good game without actually producing one. It was classic Souness. Find the weakness, point to the medals, tell the younger man he has not earned a seat at the table. What Souness was doing there was policing who is allowed to speak in football, and the people he tends to silence are the ones who challenge traditional hierarchies, the ones who want football to be something more than just a place where you win trophies and then shut up. Number 1. Paul Pogba. And then there is Paul Pogba, the most enduring, the most vocal, the most personal of all Souness's grudges. Throughout Pogba's time at Manchester United, Souness maintained the critique that went well beyond tactical analysis. It became relentless, it became a pattern, and it became something that a lot of people started to look at very carefully indeed. Souness's core argument about Pogba was always the same. Here is a player with every physical and technical tool you could want, and he wastes it. He is lazy, he is selfish, he is a YouTube footballer, meaning his game is built for highlight reels and social media clips, not for the hard, unglamorous work that winning football actually requires. He called Pogba a schoolboy. He used language about his attitude and his character that he very rarely used about players who looked different to Pogba, and analysts and researchers started to notice that pattern. A run-repeat study from 2020 found that pundits were significantly more likely to praise lighter-skinned players for intelligence and technical quality, while praising darker-skinned players predominantly for physical attributes like pace and power, and criticizing them far more often for perceived character flaws like laziness and attitude. Souness's commentary on Pogba fit that pattern in ways that were difficult to ignore. He kept coming back to Pogba, even when Pogba was injured, even when he was not in the squad, even when there was nothing new to say. It went beyond frustration with a wasted talent. It felt personal in a way that his criticism of, say, a Jack Grealish never quite did. And then Pogba said something that absolutely detonated Souness's world. When asked about the criticism, Pogba essentially shrugged and said he did not even really know who Souness was. Not a counterattack, not a row, just a dismissal. And Souness went nuclear. "Put your medals on the table," he fired back. It was not just a boast, it was a desperate reassertion of the old hierarchy. You have to respect me because of what I won. You have to know who I am. You have to acknowledge my authority. And Pogba, knowingly or not, had completely bypassed all of that. He had not even registered Souness as someone worth paying attention to. For a man whose entire identity is built on being a decorated, respected veteran of the game, there is almost nothing more wounding than being told someone does not know who you are. Souness has never got over it. The grudge remains. And that, more than anything, tells you what the Souness doctrine is really protecting. Now look at all 5 of them together. Salah, Grealish, Bellamy, Mings, Pogba. What ties them together is not their quality or lack of it. What ties them together is that every single one of them, in some way, failed to meet the specific version of respect that Souness demands. Salah put his own records above the collective. Grealish had the nerve to admit the criticism hurt him. Bellamy refused to be physically intimidated into silence. Mings dared to have opinions without a cabinet full of medals. And Pogba did not even know Souness existed. In each case, Souness does not just criticize the football. He judges the character, issues a verdict, and refuses to revisit it. He forgives mistakes on the pitch far more readily than he forgives what he sees as disrespect. A bad performance can be explained. A perceived slight against his authority is permanent, and the research is honest about what this adds up to. His refusal to soften is not just personal pettiness. It is a defensive mechanism protecting a version of football that is slowly disappearing. A version where the manager is king, the team is a tight paramilitary unit, grit is the only currency that matters, and hierarchy is sacred. The modern game has moved on from most of that. Players have their own platforms, their own voices, their own commercial power that sometimes exceeds the club's own. They negotiate publicly, they speak about mental health, they push back on managers. And to Souness, every single one of those things represents a betrayal of how the game should work. Here is what I personally think. Souness stays relevant precisely because he refuses to change. In a world full of pundits who hedge and tell you both sides, Souness plants his flag and dares you to move him. There is something almost admirable about the stubbornness. The trophies are real, the leadership was real, but somewhere along the way, the willingness to understand anything outside his own experience stopped. In a game played by players who face online abuse every day, who carry commercial pressure unimaginable in the 1980s, telling them to brush it off like dandruff is not wisdom. It is a refusal to look at the world as it actually is. Football is bigger than any one man's doctrine. It has always moved forward. And the players that Souness cannot forgive are, in their own ways, part of that movement. Salah redefined what a Liverpool forward could be. Pogba showed what a midfielder could look like in the modern era, whatever his flaws. Grealish brought a style of play to the Premier League that Guardiola himself values. Mings used his platform to say things that needed saying. And Bellamy, whatever the chaos around him, showed that a player could stand up to a manager and survive it. None of them are perfect, but then neither is the man judging them. Football has grown past the version Souness is guarding, and that does not make his past any less brilliant. It just means the game kept going when he wanted it to stay still. If you made it this far, genuinely, thank you. Drop a comment below and tell me which of the 5 you think Souness has been harshest on. I have my opinion, and I have a feeling a lot of you will disagree with me, which is exactly why I want to hear it. Like and subscribe if you are not already part of this community, and I will see you in the next one. This is Beyond Football.